Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Ancient Mysteries Unearthed. I'm your host, Chris Noble. Today, we have a returning guest to the show, Debbie Solaris. Debbie is an ET contactee, an interdimensional traveler, galactic Akashic records reader, and a cosmic historian devoted to helping humanity remember its star origins. After a life-changing extraterrestrial contactee experience, Debbie awakened to her true galactic lineage and began receiving downloads of ancient cosmic history and universal spiritual knowledge through the Akashic records. Working with guidance from Arcturian and Pleiadian beings, among probably many others, she has and supports others in healing, awakening, and reconnecting to their divine and cosmic selves. Debbie's also been featured on many other shows, including Beyond Belief with George Norrie and Open Minds as well on Gaia Television, sharing her profound insights into extraterrestrial contact, starseed remembrance, and humanity's place in the greater galactic story. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. A lot of it is going to be about the Akashic records. So without further ado, Debbie, how are you doing today?
Oh, I'm doing great, thank you. And looks like we finally got some snow in Colorado, so
Woo!
got our white. We didn't get a white Christmas, but we got a white January.
Well,
So
that's still better, you
yeah,
know? We're
yes,
we're recording here in Vancouver, and I am, and it's rain. It's like
right.
Seattle,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, it's like Seattle. Yeah, I've been there. I know what it's like. Yeah,
It's a rainy Christmas.
yeah, rainy. But we welcome these moisture any way we can get it, right? So
Absolutely, and it's a nice time to stay in, I find, and reflect. Winter is a season I find generally for most people energetically that it's just a beautiful time to be slower and to reflect and to hibernate, if you will, in our own ways. And I think that it's a nice time to look into the new year. And before we get into all the fun stuff today with the Akashic records and whatnot, we were just talking offline, Debbie, before we started recording. I think it actually be kind of cool to tell people and talk about the new year. What are you excited about this year in 2026, and what do you feel? I mean, this is a big moment for humanity, I feel, in our history. So how are you feeling about the beginning of the year?
well, according to my astrology, this is supposed to be my year. So I don't know. I feel like definitely all the travel that's coming up, a lot more travel this year. Uh, Obviously, I'm going to be part of the Mystery School at Sea cruise in March with Portal to Ascension and you and Neil and everybody else. I'm also going to be at Conscious Life Expo in February. In April, I'm going to be at the New Living Expo with a lot of other amazing speakers, and I'll be at the Journey to the Big Island in Hawaii later that month. And then we also got some exciting trainings coming up. So if people want to learn how I do what I do and all the galactic history involved with it, we do offer a galactic akashic reading course usually in the fall. So I think this year we're doing like late August, September, so that's Virgo season. So if you're interested in learning to do what I do, we offer a course every year with very highly regarded. People love the course. They learn a lot. It's 6 weeks long, and we're all going through it together. So, great course. And then, in addition to that, we're also developing the Advanced Akashic Clearing and Healing course. So, that's the next iteration of the Akashic training. So,
Wow.
yeah, so that one's actually being offered in May. So, so for those of you that are graduates, that might be something you might want to get involved with, just to advance your skills. And honestly, Chris, the reason why these skills are so important is because, we are moving towards the fifth dimension, and a lot of us have gotten, throughout, I guess, the heavy density here on this planet and heavy programming, we've gotten very disconnected from our intuitive gifts and our abilities. And these types of skills help you get back in touch with your intuition, your psychic abilities. I always say we're all psychic. There's no one person that does not have psychic abilities. It's just they haven't been tapped in yet. So thank you for allowing me to share that.
And I think that's so well said, Debbie. We all have psychic abilities. We all absolutely. I mean, the CIA could definitely confirm that for us, and it's absolutely true. I think it's more of a matter of some people have more of an ability sometimes with psychic abilities, much like we all have our different talents and skills that we're
Oh,
better at.
yeah.
But all of us can like kick a soccer ball, and all of us can like sing a tune, maybe not well, but we can do it, right? And it's the
Oh,
same
yeah.
with psychic abilities are no different, right?
Yeah.
And I think it would be great to maybe give our audience, and we did an episode before where we talked about the Akashic records, but I think it would be a good reminder, at this point, and I think our definitions for change always evolve anyway. So,
Mhm.
at this moment in time, how would you define the Akashic records where you get all this information that you are obviously now distilling to other people?
Yeah, I would say, Chris, that the Akashic Records is the energetic records of the universe. So it really exist in, say, a cosmic library. It's just in the higher dimensions. And pretty much all of us have access to these records. Just segueing back to what I was mentioning before about us all having psychic abilities and that we all have these abilities. We just need to put them in practice. Uh, the same with accessing the Akashic records. So it's just the energetic records of everything that's ever happened in the universe, regardless of what star system dimension. It's all dimensions, all star systems, all beings. And it even gets down to the nitty gritty of what were they thinking during this period of time that you're tapping into, for instance, or what was their emotions, what was the thought process, what was the outcome, and it even shows various different timelines. So when one is doing an Akashic Records reading, for instance, you're tapping into lots of different clair gifts as well as different dimensions at the same time. So it does take a little practice, um, but once people, get used to accessing the higher realms, they'll be amazed at how this information just flows through. So,
And Debbie, do you access this like through meditation, breath work? Like, how are you accessing these higher
um,
dimensions?
so I learned the Linda Howe method of doing Akashic readings. That was how I was trained. So she teaches kind of like this whole ritualistic process where you do the white column of light exercise, where you're connecting with the higher realms within this column of light. And then, if you're doing a reading for yourself or for another person, you do the divine heart triangle. So you're connecting with the heart chakra of the person you're reading, or the your higher self. So you're connecting with your higher self if you're doing a reading for yourself. And then from there, you do like a little what they call a pathway prayer process, and then you open the records. It's easier than people think. Like I said, once people get the ability or the wherewithal to practice accessing the records, it just becomes easier and easier. In my case, I don't even have to do the whole pathway prayer. I can, at will connect with the records. So usually all I need is just, if I'm doing a reading for someone else, I just need their name and birth date usually. So it's not really breath work at all. There is, I think, a sense of clearing space. I always clear space before I do a reading, and a set of intentions. But like I said, pretty easy to connect. Like once you get the process down. But
Yeah.
I do think the ritualistic aspect is important because it does help one to set intention. So
Intentions are everything,
yeah,
right? Yeah. So how do you find through this process that you're accessing all this information, and for our audience, we're gonna get into some fun history stuff
yeah.
sooner down the road here, but I'm really curious about the healing aspect of this. So how is it that when you access with a client or someone just on their own will access
Mhm.
their own Akashic records, how does that how does that work with the healing process, I guess? Like, how does that all tie together?
Yeah, gotcha. So a lot of times, so I do two different services. So I do just a basic Akashic reading where it's kind of like 180-degree view, or even a 360-degree view of a person's soul journey. And then that includes even off-planet incarnations and connections with different star beings and star systems. But with the Akashic clearing sessions I do, that's where the healing and the clearing plays a big part. And basically, what we're doing is kind of like deep level shadow work, where it's kind of like a if I can explain it in the sense that it's an accelerated aspect of doing clearing work. So if somebody's working up with me doing an Akashic clearing, it accelerates the healing process because we're diving deep into the records and clearing out old contracts or old traumas or ancestral programs, and maybe even external factors, such as implants or attachments that might be affecting that person from stepping into their most, I would say, their highest potential. And honestly, Chris, I would say more and more people are opting to do the Akashic clearing sessions. And that's what we'll be teaching in what I call the Arch course, which is the Akashic Records clearing and healing course that we'll be offering in May. So we're teaching people how to do this process. But to be quite honest, unless you take the GARC course, which is the our basic level course, you're probably not ready for the Arch course. So
That makes sense. Obviously,
yeah,
you
yeah.
gotta work your way up to these things, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you got to have the basics down, and then you can get into the more advanced work. And a lot
Makes
of it's
sense.
working with chakras, and it's working with programs like different soul programs, and
Oh, interesting.
it's pretty interesting, really. To
Mm,
me, it's actually more powerful than doing just a basic Akashic reading. Although people get a lot of information from that, and obviously, it could be life changing for people, but
oh, yeah.
I would say the Akashic clearings are definitely more transformative. And that's going to be our focus this year is, getting people to that next level.
And I love that. I think, and that makes a lot of sense because
Yeah.
it's making me think right now of epigenetics, right? We have with our DNA, which
Hmm.
is, of course, our physical lineages that we carry on, which,
Hmm.
as we know now with science, carries trauma and carries memory and carries a whole bunch of things. Is it the same with your higher self or your soul's lineage, let's say, that you can learn about through the Akashic
Oh
records?
yeah.
Is that kind of the same idea?
Oh yeah, yeah. We integrate a lot of epigenetic concepts in the Akashic clearing process, because a lot of my clients might be struggling with health issues, maybe long-standing health issues, and a lot of times what I find is a lot of these health issues have like a basis beyond this current Earth life. So it may be the result of trauma signatures from previous lifetimes, whether they be from Earth or even off planet. And I do teach a course also called Mastering Starseed Health that gets really into the nitty gritty of all different star lineages and what their common health issues are, and also what they can do to resolve those health issues. And that's available on my website if people just want to take that particular course. So that's just a self-paced course. It's like a 2 or 3 hour long course.
Perfect. And for our audience, that's going to be in the show notes below, everybody. So check that out with Debbie. And so we've got this amazing healing aspect of the Akashic records, which makes sense to me as you're explaining it.
Mm.
I love that. But then we have this historical side, which is obviously one of my favorite parts of it.
Oh
And
yeah.
when you first tapped into this, Debbie, like what were some of the first major downloads you had about, let's say, the galactic history or Earth's history, how did it start for you? What were some of the first major, like, wow, that's actually what happened, you know?
Yeah. I would say my first major download was the Lyran Wars, the Lyran Draconian Wars. That was, I think, because I was bringing in a soul memory from my lifetime there, where I got killed in the wars, and it was pretty traumatic, honestly. I think I was having a conversation with somebody. Actually, the conversation is on my YouTube channel about how traumatizing it was reliving through all that. But it got me thinking that, okay, our history goes way beyond Earth. That human races have been existing for millennia. Long before Earth was even a concept in this reality. And so it prompted me to start doing a lot of my own research. So I started just reading a lot of books and doing research out there. And in the meantime, I was starting to get downloads about the history of the Pleiades, the history of Sirius, the history of Arcturus, the Galactic Center, the Orion Wars. So all of this was, starting to trickle in. Honestly, when this first started happening, like back in, I would say 2012, 2013, I thought, maybe I was going crazy, like where is this coming from? I never learned this. And then as I did more and more research, I was realizing there's quite a few other people talking about these things, like Lissa Royale Holt, Alex Collier, Barbara Marciniak, Dolores Cannon. So there was, other people that came before me that was also delving into these records. And so that started giving me more and more the confidence of, hey, there's something to this. It's more than just me that's getting these downloads. But even in doing my work with the Akashic records, so I still do readings. Honestly, I have so many clients right now. I really can't take new clients at this time. Maybe that'll change in the future, but when I do readings for my clients, I'm always downloading new things. So even when I go into the records, maybe because of my client's particular history, I might see something that I didn't see before, or I learned something about a new system, or maybe another galaxy, or another counterpart, universe. So it's not static. I think that's what I love about this work, is that there's always this new information coming in. So the more you work with the records, the more you're going to have access to this information.
And I think that's what Dolores Cannon was also doing, right?
Yeah,
Where she's
yeah,
all these hypnotic regressions that she's
yeah.
just getting all this information from her clients ultimately,
Oh, yeah,
right?
totally.
Like a ton
Yeah.
of it. And I think Edgar Casey also got into that too, right?
Oh,
With
yeah. They're kind of like my forerunners. I have a lot of respect for those folks, along with Dr. Linda Howe, who's kind of popularized the whole concept of doing Akashic readings. So
Mm,
she's done amazing work in that area. Her style is more Christian based, but still,
okay.
the process is there. So
And for our audience too, like just like to follow up with Debbie here is like these a lot of these things have been confirmed. So a lot of these Akashic record downloads that have come from like Edgar Casey or Dolores Cannon or Debbie's clients for that matter,
yeah,
a lot of it gets confirmed later on. As an example, there like Edgar Casey said that there's a passageway under the left paw of the Sphinx, and I
hmm,
confirmed that with a couple of people when I was in Egypt. I'm like, yeah, it's definitely real. And there's many examples of this. And he was also, wasn't he, Edgar Casey, diagnosing people and giving, like, he was the
yeah, he
grandfather of
was.
holistic medicine, I think, or
Oh,
something. And
yeah, he was. Yeah,
yeah.
a lot of people were carrying trauma from Atlantis. So that was a big focus of his, back late, in early last century. So that was a focus of his, was to help heal people from that Atlantean trauma. Whereas with me, it seems like it's more the Lyran trauma and the Orion War trauma. That's what I'm dealing with a lot of my clients. But back then, I guess the consciousness was able to accept, working with Atlantean trauma, and a lot of star seeds and a lot of, I would say, light workers have had incarnations in both Atlantis and Egypt. So a lot of us are feeling connections to those civilizations and processing our lives from those civilizations. Just to
Yeah.
give you an example of something I saw in the records that was later confirmed by science, which it always makes me excited when something is confirmed. So in the records, I kept asking the records, like, why did these paradise why did physicality in our reality start in Lyra? Why Lyra? Lyra is this little dinky little constellation. It only has 13 stars. It's very kind of insignificant, as far as the size, because Orion is a much bigger, and Andromeda is much bigger, so what I saw in the records was that there was the reason why Lyra was chosen was because of its proximity to Galactic Center, where pretty much this whole separation into physicality began. And then uh, it also had the conditions most favorable for physical life. And I kept seeing that, and I'm like, okay, I don't know what that means, but sounds good. And then one day I was reading an article in cosmos.com, and they were talking about inhabitable exoplanets in our galaxy. And I would say 5 of the planets on the list were located in Lyra. And they said these were planets that even today could be inhabitable by physical life, even human life for that matter. And some of the planets were also in Proxima Centauri. There was some other outlier planets, but I thought that was really significant, and it proved, what I was seeing in the records all along, which is pretty impressive.
That's awesome. I love when that
Yeah,
happens.
yeah,
Yeah. And that's so interesting. So, maybe on that note too, I'm curious a bit more of like, so how did Earth come into the picture then? Because you said earlier in this episode, like that was before Earth was even a concept, right? So
yeah, it was, yeah.
what's that? How is the history? Was it created? How did Earth start?
Yeah. Well, I think it was always an existing solar system. Like I mean, Earth is a part of a solar system, just like, all these other star systems that we're talking about. So when we talk about Vega, that's its own star system. So Vega is part of the Lyra system, and it's, I think, considered to be the 5th brightest star. Yeah, it's the 5th brightest star in our night sky. And it used to be actually our North Star a long time ago, so it was Earth's North Star. Now it's Polaris, and it'll eventually return back to Vega. So maybe a few thousand years from now, our North Star will be Vega again. But Earth came to being, it was kind of a unique planet in the sense that it had the capacity to encapsulate quite a diversity of different DNA and different environments. So, so for that reason, I think Earth was created to be like a living library of DNA from different star systems. So there was extraterrestrial beings that were visiting planet Earth, even millions of years ago. Like the Syrians, for instance, were probably one of the first groups to visit Earth, because Earth was only 8.7 light years from their system. So they had a curiosity about Earth, and they actually had a big hand in, I would say, developing, the human genetics here on the planet. But in addition to that, the Pleiadians got involved, and Aldebaran, and Procyon people, and even the Arcturians and Andromedans. But they say that there's 22 different star races that have contributed DNA to planet Earth. And that's why we see such diversity in human types and animals and plants and environments here. But Earth was always supposed to be a fifth dimensional planet. So it was always supposed to be like this little paradise that contained all of this DNA content from different star systems. But then with the fall of Lemuria, it plunged, and also the fall of Atlantis, it plunged from fifth to third, and that's where we've been ever since. But and I know a lot of people out there are maybe not aware of early Earth history. So a lot of people, I think, have heard of Atlantis, but not too many people outside of our community have heard of Lemuria. They don't know what happened between Lemuria and Atlantis, that they went to war, and Lemuria got destroyed, and then Atlantis got destroyed because they went into a civil war with each other, and so this all led to the development of new civilizations such as Egypt. So Egypt was kind of the offshoot of the fall of Lemuria and Atlantis. So my concept, or at least my theory, is that Egypt was created to bring in the best qualities of both of those civilizations. So it's supposed to be like a balance between masculine and feminine energies, which initially in early Egyptian history, it probably was more balanced. But then, like every other civilization here on Earth, the patriarchy took over, so and that was the beginning of a long descent into the end of that civilization.
I have a quick
But yeah,
question on that. Sorry to
yeah,
interrupt there, Debbie. I just
yeah.
have a quick question with with all of that, the fall of Atlantis and Lemuria and us fighting amongst ourselves, it seems, as per
Mm,
usual.
yeah.
I also know that hasn't there also been some extraterrestrial manipulation and influence to pit
Oh,
us against
absolutely. And
one
that's
another?
one of the things I'm going to be talking about on the cruise. So
Amazing.
yeah, so when we are on the cruise, my presentation is called "When the Gods Walk the Skies," and it's about the extraterrestrial influence of ancient Greece and ancient Anatolian civilizations. So that's going to be my focus for the cruise. I'm excited about this topic because I'm a big fan of Greek and Roman history, because that's where my genetics are from, first of all. And then just since I was a child, I had this, deep interest in Greek and Roman mythology. And I always thought the mythology must have been based on reality. I don't think humans just made that stuff up, like a lot of these creatures that we, read about that are, like unicorns and sphinx and chimeras and other hydras, these beings that we learned about. They were based in reality, including dragons. So dragons also were based in reality. They're real beings, they're not made up. And so where these beings come from, why were they created, and then how does ancient mythology interact with human history here on Earth, and then also extraterrestrial history? So who were these star races that were influencing ancient Greece? I know, for instance, just to give people little insight into one of the areas I'm going to be talking about, is the Oracle of Delphi. So that was the temple in Delphi, that was the temple to Apollo, who was the sun god, which was highly influenced by the Pleiadians. So Pleiadians from the Merope system had some influence on the way these oracles were connecting with the higher realms. So these oracles were getting their information. Like everybody knows about the Oracle of Delphi. It was they picked some really gifted girl, and she connected with the higher realms. But what was she connecting with? She was connecting with the Akashic records, and that came from teachings from the Pleiadians. So that's something I'm going to be one of the many examples I'm going to be talking about, during the cruise, my presentation for the cruise. So Like I said, it's a topic that's near and dear to my heart. So, as I think it is for a lot of people, I think a lot
I
of
think
people,
so.
yeah, I think a
I
lot
think
of people are really interested.
I mean, even for people that didn't like history in school, I think most people got a little bit more excited during the Greek, and Roman history side
Yeah,
of things because,
exactly.
like, the mythology is so fun, and of course, it's entered our pop culture a lot too.
Oh yeah,
And it's just wild to think, and for a long time now, I've just always thought of the gods in these ancient cultures as other beings that were just more advanced, and we do have a worship gene, I think, in our
yeah. I think it's human tendency to want to deify
yeah.
beings that are more advanced. I don't know why that is, but
And there's a part of us that's like it, and I don't know if this is maybe the manipulation and maybe part of our trauma, but
yeah.
we always want to look outside of ourselves for the answer, oh, this our
Mhm.
savior is coming from the skies or
Oh yeah,
whatever from another
exactly.
dimension, but it's like, well, aren't we that, and we are. I mean, if you look at how these ETs have influenced us, they gave us some good stuff to work with,
Yeah,
you
no,
know.
they were teachers. I mean, and I always talk about this. And one of the presentations I am going to do for the New Living Expo is on Lemurian Atlantis. And so back then, it was really common for extraterrestrials to visit Earth, and they were visiting humans, and they were teachers. They were teaching humans, advanced technologies and how to do things. Even how to do basic stuff. So. Um, so I think it was natural for humans to want to put these beings up on a pedestal. So for instance, everybody talks about the Anunnaki, and the Anunnaki were just extraterrestrial beings. They were colonizing Earth for a while, and so throughout, Sumerian and even biblical history, these beings were kind of deified because they had advanced technology and they had, I would say, advanced knowledge that humans didn't have. And so,
And with
um,
the Anunnaki, Debbie, weren't they also, didn't they like it? I think, like, they kind of wanted to be worshipped.
oh, absolutely. Oh, yeah, they loved it. Oh,
Like,
yeah.
they were happy to control us,
Oh, yeah,
obviously.
yeah.
Yeah.
They manipulated the human genetics so much. I kind of personally have an affront to the Anunnaki that was involved with that because they took human DNA from 12 strand to 2 strand, which was their way of dumbing down the human race so they could, enslave them and use them for, gathering gold in the mines or whatever it is that they were using humans for. Um, but I know I personally have like a little bit of anger around that because when you think about humans, like back in the early times, humans were living like 800, 900 years. I mean, it was common for humans to have very long life because they had stronger DNA. And then once the DNA got manipulated and downgraded, humans started living. I mean, they were lucky to live to 40 years, or 45 years. And then women were dying more and more in childbirth, which was, I think, kind of catastrophic. Like, their whole race, slave race was dying out. Um, so they brought in, I think, some of these the Sirius A people. That Sirius A people actually are. They were considered to be the masters of physical healing. They done a lot of work with medicine. And so a lot of them were master geneticists. So they brought them in to try to strengthen the human genome, which brings us to where we're at now. So at least we have the capacity to ascend. But yeah, there was a lot of manipulation going on. And even, amongst the Pleiadians and the Aldebaran and Procyon and the Pleiadians. I think I already mentioned the Pleiadians, but Syrians I meant. There was a lot of genetic manipulation going on in the human race here on Earth. So honestly, Earth humans were kind of a Heinz 57 of many different genetics. To be quite honest. So we have some reptilian genetics. We have some, Lyran humanoid genetics. We have a lot of Syrian genetics. So interesting question, but thanks. Yeah.
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 Well, it's so you're making me think now too. So I'll be doing a presentation on the cruise as well about I like to call it unlocking your inner superhero, because I'm
Mhm.
convinced one of the reasons why we're obsessed with the superhero culture is because we're seeing a future possible version of ourselves.
Oh,
And I'm
absolutely.
convinced that's part of our dormant DNA, our
Mhm.
junk DNA. 98.7% of our DNA is this junk
Junk,
off,
which is actually
offline.
which is actually extraterrestrial DNA. That's yeah, that's
Let's
the thing
turn
they
off the
don't
good
wanna
stuff.
tell us. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
they call it junk DNA because then, so yeah,
It's how you sell it, right? Or
yeah,
not sell
exactly.
it,
Yeah,
right? And I'm convinced that's where those superpowers like levitation or self-healing or name a thing, whatever the heck it is, like those superpowers,
telepathy.
telepathy,
Yeah.
making fire shoot out of your hands. I don't know. Like
Yeah, I
I
know.
saw some monks with using chi, and they could literally like it's on video on YouTube. You can see these things where they're like take a ball of paper and then get all that chi energy and like put their hands over top, and the ball of paper goes ignites within like five
Wow.
seconds. I know. So these are like
Or
this is
levitating objects, that's the one that always fascinates me is when people can do that, like with or bending spoons or I don't know.
yes, like
Yeah.
Matrix style stuff. I mean, how
Yeah,
did they build all these things in the past anyway,
yeah.
too? Probably levitation. So my curiosity is with this manipulation that's happened to us with our DNA, what moving forward into the future, what happens when we're unlocking it now? Like, do you have any insights from your research to what would we look like with our 12 strands back? Like,
Yeah.
what would that look like?
I think, honestly, I think once the 12 strands get reactivated, there is nothing that's going to stop us. That's why we have to be in the love consciousness because obviously, if these abilities get awakened in people that are not, I would say, positively aligned, it could be very dangerous. I mean, it could do a lot of damage, but I do think part of the pre-requirement would be to be in love consciousness, to be, a fifth dimensional human. But yeah, I would say we would be unstoppable. We would no longer be so easily deceived, by governments or because we'll be able to read people's thoughts. I mean, we'll be able to see everything, there'll be no secrets left on this planet, which is why I personally am really looking forward to telepathy because things are so much easier. It's easier to communicate. There's no language barriers. It's just straight communication. With other beings that are also telepathic. So telepathy is going to be one of those gifts. We're going to be able to create different realities just from the power of our mind. I mean, which this is what they were actually doing in Lemuria, so this is a hidden art, from Lemuria, maybe even Atlantis. So manifestation is going to happen at the drop of a hat. There's going to be no need for a monetary system or a system of control because people are going to be, I would say, just self-sovereign, so they can create their own realities and do what they love to do. In the meantime, still being of service to others. So this doesn't mean that, oh yeah, you get the green light to just, be self-serving and not think about anybody else. There also has to be that desire to be of service and to help many
Exactly.
others. Yeah.
I've heard, Debbie, so it's exactly, I've heard from a lot of contactee people and stuff too that these ETs are saying we are actually the guardians of the galaxy.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
But and I think you hit it so well because we
Yeah.
have to be in that love consciousness though, because you're
Uh-huh.
so right. If we have these incredible powers and we're in our current consciousness state, mm-mm,
Mm-mm.
that's real
No.
rough. That's
No, we're
dangerous. You're
gonna
right.
destroy ourselves if that happens. Yeah, I mean, and it's happened in history before, it
Yeah,
happened with Atlantis, it happened
exactly.
with Maldek, um, so if you have these amazing powers and you're not in the love consciousness, people are gonna be drawn to misuse it or use it for selfish reasons or use it, because they hate another group and they want to get back at them. There might be jealousy or this sense of revenge or retaliation, and we got to move beyond that. We can't be in in that level of duality consciousness anymore. It's just not going to be a thing. Otherwise, we're never going to be able to ascend to that higher level. And I think that's why the 10 strands that were turned off are still turned off, because we're not quite there yet. But
That makes sense.
yeah,
Yeah.
because I don't think they could trust humans yet, with
I
Superman
don't.
abilities, but I do think we're working towards that, so
Definitely.
I think you and I, we wouldn't be here if we didn't have a lot of optimism around, human capacity, to embrace the love conscious or the Christ consciousness, if you want to call it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I've seen it time and time again. My day job's a traveling musician essentially, and I get to meet people all the time in many different situations where I feel like I get to meet the average Jane and Joe
Oh, yeah.
very often, which is really nice. And I get a nice pulse on where people are at. And I've been finding more and more recently, like every year that goes by, more and more people are opening up to. If I love to just talk about aliens very quickly in a conversation usually, and
Mhm.
it gets received very like, "Oh, yeah, cool, I heard about those New Jersey drones," or,
Yeah.
"Oh, yeah, I saw some stuff on the TV about that," or I might even get, like, a really excited person, like, "Oh my god, yeah," and, like, enthusiasm ensues in these conversations, and I feel like the tone around our galactic friends and family has really shifted, luckily, and I think that's also gonna help with, the upcoming disclosure,
Mhm.
and I would love to get your 2 cents, Debbie, on disclosure, as I feel like it's always like we're entering new timelines all the time, so the dates of disclosure and things get moved around and stuff, but what is your vision of disclosure, and do you have a timeline roughly that you can see it happening?
Yeah, I tapped into that a few years ago, and so I was asking the records, when are things going to shift and change? And the timeline they gave me was between 2028 and 2032, in our current timeline, which I think I like the sense that it's giving us a range because it could be earlier, it could be later, but I do think it's going to happen around that time. And I know some other channelers like Bashar, Daryl Anka, is claiming that 2027 is going to be the year that we have actual extraterrestrial contact, which is not too far from my prediction. So I do think we're just around the corner of mass disclosure. Where. And I think people are already tuning in. Honestly, I mean, you got to be living under a rock or really, got blinders on to not see that there's more going on than what we've been told or led to believe. Pretty much, I believe a lot of our history, on Earth history, it was either heavily suppressed or outright lies. I mean, we were taught a lie for a lot of centuries, if not if not thousands of years. So I do think this is going to blow open, and we're just around the corner of that. I do believe it's going to start with extraterrestrial contact. And like I said, I do think most likely that's going to happen between 2028 and 2032. And then from there, everything's going to blow open because everybody's going to know about this contact. It's not going to be hidden like it has in the past. My belief is that the beings that are going to contact us first are going to be our closest neighbors. So it's not necessarily going to be the Pleiadians or the Syrians. Although, they're probably, very human-like compared to some other groups. But I think it's going to be most likely Venusians or the Alpha Centaurians, because those are the beings that are our closest neighbors. And and then from there, once we get, and they're the ones that are most human, like if you were to see a Venusian being, they look pretty human. They might be better looking than most Earth humans, but they look pretty human. Same with Alpha Centaurians. They just exist in higher dimensions than we do, but I do believe these beings will be contacting us, and then from there we'll start getting introduced to Pleiadians and Sirians, Arcturians, so forth and so on. So I do think it's just around the corner. And I hope I'm right, because I don't want to be waiting 50 years. I don't think any of us do. I think a lot of us have signed up for this. We wanted to be part of this ascension process, and we want to see, heaven return to earth, which is always supposed to be the case here. So I don't know, maybe it's just around the corner, like, it has been predicted.
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I think 2026 is kind of a preparation year. It's kind of like this year, more so than previous years, we are in preparation for this contact experience. And that's why it's so important for us to start getting that information out. And I think a lot of star seeds and a lot of light workers are feeling that urgency, like, oh, I got to really get on my mission. I got to get, start to raise consciousness in whatever way I can. You're doing it through your music and through, these podcasts and, your other work. I'm trying to do it in my way. So we all have our particular gifts, which is what we were talking about earlier, but we all have a very similar mission. It's just to prepare Earth humans for the inevitable, which is going to be Earth becoming once again part of the greater galactic family.
Yeah.
Which
Just
I
going
can't
back
wait for
to,
that.
I can't wait either. I can't wait either. And it's just
Yeah,
going back to how it was in a lot of ways, but I'm sure a new iteration, obviously.
yeah, yeah. I
And
think. Well, I think it's going to be probably starting off very similar to how it was in Lemuria, or Atlantis, where these beings were visiting us, and we have emissaries that maybe some of us that can communicate with them better, because we've been communicating with them all along. I know, in your intro of me, you mentioned that I have contact with a lot of beings. I do. I get downloads all the time, from different star beings. And so to me, they're just part of the family. I don't see them as, ooh, they're alien and they're scary. I've gotten so used to connecting with them. So if they're benevolent beings, you feel that, you feel that love and that acceptance, and just I would say the overwhelming love, coming from these beings. And so that makes them a lot less scary, even though maybe they don't look like Earth humans. But I tell you what, though, if you run into a Pleiadian, holy crap, those beings are amazing. I mean, they are. I don't think Earth humans are ready for Pleiadians yet, let alone Arcturians and Andromedans.
I've heard things like the love vibration that you feel from some of these beings is like
It's so overwhelming. It's just like,
yeah, I've heard like it's like the unconditional love of like a dog times a million.
it's
You know?
exactly like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
You don't even have a chance to feel scared, because you're just enveloped in this love, and you're just soaking it all in. And it's like, and you just want to stay there, because here on Earth, we don't feel that oftentimes.
No.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. It's
Do
just,
you have a favorite? Like, is that them, the Palladians, or do you have like a favorite, ET race?
I would say the Arcturians are my jam. I mean, they're my star race. I originated from Arcturus. At least that's what they told me. So I would say I'm most connected with the Arcturians, and those are my guides, are the Arcturian collective. But I also love interacting with the Pleiadians, because they understand the human condition. They understand what we go through here. And they usually will take us by the hand and kind of like guide us through things. I always say people with Pleiadian guides, they have it made, because Pleiadian guides are so loving, and they understand how things are like here on Earth, more so than the Arcturian guides, which might have more of an overview vision, or more of a detached approach to things that are going on here. But yeah, I've connected with the Syrians, and Andromeda galaxy beings. I mean, I love all of them for different reasons. It's just you get insights from these beings, and they're just all amazing. You know,
Yeah. I
yeah,
can't wait to meet them. I can't wait to
yeah,
meet them
yeah.
all.
I feel very fortunate that I'm able to see through the records what these beings look like, or sometimes even through my third eye, I see other people's guides.
Mm,
And they're just so beautiful. And I wish I had the artistic ability to be able to depict what they look
mm.
like. So sometimes I have to rely on AI, which it's not perfect, but you know,
Helpful though, at least to get some kind of a
yeah,
visual,
some
right?
sort of, yeah, because I think a lot of times people want to know, what are these beings? What are they like? What are these beings? What do they look like?
Mm,
So that's why I think with my presentations, I use a lot of AI art. I use a lot of art, because I want to give people that sense of being there, or being in the presence of these beings. Because I think that also helps jog our galactic memories quite a bit.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's almost a remembrance, I see when I see depictions like that, it also I always have to wonder, I'm like, is it because 'cause I'm conditioned from sci-fi movies?
Mm.
Or because I am remembering? But I know because when I watch sci-fi movies, I feel like I'm watching a history
I do too. I
documentary.
mean, even with this newest, Avatar, like I think they're going to be releasing the third Avatar iteration soon. When I was watching Avatar, it reminded me of some of the Lyra planets, and just how beautiful they were, and how integrated these beings were with their environment. And then even other like Star Wars always reminds me of the Orion Wars, and then Star Trek always reminds me of the Galactic Federation of Light. It's like they have little soft disclosure, like with these sci-fi movies.
Oh,
But I
100%.
always, yeah, yeah. I mean, I think it's soft disclosure. I think some of these movie producers and directors are getting their own downloads. Like
Oh, yeah.
George Lucas.
Well,
So
James Cameron, I've heard many times that he got a couple of his movies, from really vivid dreams that he would
yeah.
have recurring until he made the movie, and then the dreams would stop.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
that sounds like some ET intervention
yeah,
maybe?
that's some ET stuff there. I don't know.
Mm.
Maybe he had past lives in Lyra or Vega, and he was just starting to remember them too. So
I mean, he also sprinkles because I just saw the 3rd Avatar,
yeah,
a couple weeks ago, and it's fantastic, and
yeah.
it's very like, they sprinkle in so many beautiful spiritual nuggets too, like,
Hmm.
little spiritual wisdom, philosophies, and amongst all the action, and then I don't know, it's good storytelling, and I think the visuals are just I think why we love it so much and why it's fun to still see it in theaters is because 'cause you're immersed into an alien planet
Yeah, totally.
that also feels so freaking real,
Yeah,
you
I'll
know?
have to go see it for sure. Yeah.
Highly recommend.
Yes, yes, yes. Yeah, highly recommend. Highly
Yeah.
recommend.
We're
Yes.
gonna turn this
So
podcast into a movie review now of
yeah, yeah.
all
No.
all the soft disclosures because there's a
Yeah.
lot of them. Like Neil, our mutual friend for the audience here, Neil, from Portal to Ascension, I was with him in Colombia for 2.5 months, and
Yeah.
our binge show that we'd watch was Stargate SG-1,
Oh, I love
and
that show.
it's
Oh my
so
God.
good, and
Yeah.
it's so clearly depicting the secret space program in perfect detail,
Yeah.
and you're just like, "Oh, I'm watching a nice documentary now."
Yeah. No, well, here's a little tidbit. So apparently, Stargate SG-1 was supposed to take place at NORAD, and I still own property in Colorado Springs that directly faces Cheyenne Mountain, which is where NORAD is located. So that series had like a particular personal, I guess, connection. I have a personal connection to it because I live so close to that mountain. Yeah,
Oh,
I
okay.
don't live there anymore, but I still own the property that faces Cheyenne Mountain. And yeah, there was some stuff going on. There was some weird frequencies. I mean,
Mm,
it was you just got the sense like I mean my back patio directly faced that mountain. It was
okay.
just because I lived in that part of the Springs. But um there was some weird frequencies. Like sometimes I would hear things and I was just like,
Mm,
okay, this is not coming from me or my guides. This is coming from when I still lived there, which now it's a rental. I have a tenant that lives there, but I don't know, maybe
mhm.
he's exposed to all those frequencies. But yeah, but yeah, it's crazy how so much of this is based on real life. It is.
Probably a lot more than people think, and when disclosure does happen, I think these are gonna be some of the many, many revelations people are gonna have is, "Oh my gosh, you're telling me Star Wars was real? Oh,
Yeah.
you're telling me when I was sitting in this terrible history class, I didn't even need to be there because it wasn't real anyway?"
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
You know?
yeah, totally. Yeah.
It's gonna be very,
Yeah, wait
delusional
until
or
yeah,
yeah,
wait until people start realizing the Pleiadian influence of the founding fathers. I mean, that's like mind blowing, that's like crazy. So,
there's so
this
many, yeah.
planet, even though, obviously our government here is not, I mean, it's pretty corrupt, okay, but the whole concept of, the United States was based on Pleiadian principles
That makes
because,
sense. If you
yeah,
look at your constitution, it kinda
yeah,
makes sense.
yeah, yeah, totally.
Yeah. And then you see, in the corporate world, we got Palladian influence, like Subaru car company has
Mhm.
the Palladian
Has the
stars.
Pleiadian, yeah, the Pleiadian logo, yeah, I
Yeah.
used to own a Subaru too, I would
Oh,
always
yeah.
call it my Pleiadian blue car because it's blue, yeah, so it's like
Oh, that's great.
yeah,
I love this, Debbie. Look, we can obviously talk for hours here, but
yeah,
we'll wrap it up for the podcast today.
yeah,
Before we give everyone your info and where they can find you and all that, what are your final thoughts for disclosure as we're kind of on that topic to wrap things up? And maybe some words of wisdom for our audience in how like some people like us are going to love it. Some people might be a little freaked out for a bit. Some people might be super confused. It's going to be a massive ego death for a lot of people. It's gonna
yeah.
be revelations left, right, and center. What how do you see it for yourself unfolding, and maybe what can we do individually or collectively to, let's say, bring in the highest timeline possible?
Yeah, you know what I noticed, like, with a lot of my posts on social media is there's still a lot of fear out there. I mean, a lot of cognitive dissonance and a lot of fear, and I think a natural human reaction to fear is to attack the person that's giving them different information, but I would say, if I had to leave just a final thought here is just really go into the coming years with a really open mind. Kind of throw out everything that you were taught, earlier, whether it be in your churches or in your schools or in, from the government, so just throw all that out the window and just really keep an open mind on what reality is really all about. And I think it's going to make the next few years easier for people to integrate rather than, encapsulating themselves in all this fear and anger, which is what I'm seeing pretty much across the board right now. So this is more directed towards the normies, not people in our community that are already integrated into this. But yeah, it's going to be, I think, pretty mind blowing. I think for a lot of people that have not yet awakened, it will be. I think it may be difficult for some of them to integrate, but um, it's either integrate or be left behind. I don't know. It's just like, yeah, so
Yeah.
uh, who knows? I mean, I know Dolores Cannon talked about, the earth shifting, there's going to be a 3D earth and
Right.
there's going to be a 5D earth. And
Mhm.
I think we're going to see the separation more and more in the coming years, where even people that we've had for friends, we might not be friends with them anymore. Family members, there'd
Yeah.
be a lot of attrition. So just be prepared for that. It's going to be very different.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's okay, this is just change, and
Yeah.
that's just the reality. And I think, yeah, the open mind and an open heart, I think, like you were saying earlier, I think is really important for us to remain in this love frequency as much as we can, because that will help, with all the craziness that we'll see around us and all the
Oh, yeah.
unknowns, and you know what I
It's
mean? Like just to stay in that love vibration.
stays really centered. Yeah, and I wouldn't even pay attention to what mainstream media keeps, you know, touting out there, and just all the drama and all all the crazy events that are going on right now. And I do believe we all have the capacity to create a new world. And
Mhm.
I love that you're teaching on people how to activate their superhero abilities. That's going to be part of that, is
Mm.
creating a different world. And that's what we're all looking forward to.
Yep. Absolutely.
Yep.
Absolutely. I love it, Debbie. So where can people connect with you? Of course, as everyone knows in the show, it's all going to be in the show notes below, but let's also hear it from Debbie herself. Where can
Yeah,
people
I
connect?
would say the easiest way to get a hold of me is on my I'm sorry, my website, which is debbiesolaris.com, just like you see on the screen here. So you'll find me there. I'm also on Instagram and Facebook and YouTube. So I do have a YouTube channel. So we're starting to get more content on particularly Instagram and YouTube. So, check out some of the content we got on there. I'm not yet doing TikTok. I just can't get into the vibe of TikTok. So I don't know. Maybe one day I'll do have a TikTok account, but other than that, yes, you can find me on social medias. Find me on my website. You can find some of my interviews on Gaia TV. I did quite a few of them throughout the years. So if you're interested in hearing some content there, if you're a Gaia subscriber, that's another good place to find me.
Yeah, 100%. Got to check out Debbie's episodes. She's got some great knowledge to share and amazing wisdom. And thank you so much, Debbie, for being here on
Thank
this
you for
episode.
having me. This has been great. I always love connecting with you. So
I appreciate it. And
looking
I'm going to
forward to
see
seeing you
you
on the cruise. Yeah.
100%. We're
And
going to be
you
on the
live
cruise.
and you living expo. Yes.
Correct. Correct. We got lots of fun stuff. So,
Yeah.
Debbie Solaris, thank you so much. Appreciate
Thank
you being on the
you. Take
show.
care.
All right. You take and just hang out for a second in the green room while we wrap things up here. I want to
Okay, sure.
say a final goodbye. So, Debbie Solaris, everybody, what an amazing episode. What an incredible wealth of knowledge, as always, that she brings. And the Akashic Records, of course, is just that amazing resource we have as, I guess, beings of light that we can access. And of course, if you want to access more of that, check out Debbie's courses because, I mean, she's obviously got an incredible way of approaching this knowledge and this topic. So, I think she's going to have some amazing, incredible ways to teach you to do this yourself. And I think that's where we're moving as a species, is to be more self-sufficient, more independent, and more free, sovereign, like we were saying earlier in the episode. So definitely take a look at all of her amazing work. And as we've been talking about in this episode, we've got some really cool events happening this year. We've got, of course, the Mediterranean Mystery School at Sea cruise that good old Portal to Ascension's putting on, where Debbie and myself will be. It's in March this year. You can find all that information in the show notes as well. And then I'll be leading a tour to Egypt in September this year, which is going to be wild and amazing and magical and all that good stuff. And you can find the information for the Egypt tour down in the show notes as well. And as always, more than anything, make sure you like and subscribe if you're watching this on YouTube, or if you're just listening to us, give us some love for whatever platform you're on. And we're sending you lots of love from I was about to say Portal to Ascension. That's our sister channel. From Ancient Mysteries Unearthed, much love to you. And from myself, Chris Noble, much love, everybody. Thank you so much for watching this episode. We'll catch you on the next episode of Ancient Mysteries Unearthed. Until next time.